Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the channel. We have our lovely Courtney Dillon here. Her information is in the description box. And I read off all the stuff she does, which is a lot. But if you go to the team, which is the tab at the top of the atlantiscalar.com thingy, you'll see that she's on that list. Channel, healer, works with inner child stuff, past life readings, so much. And I don't know how she does it all. But anyway, she is going to help me channel my son, Erik, who's in the afterlife.
He's right here.
I love you.
Standing right behind me. He loves you too. Yeah, like, I know. He's always stands over here for some reason. I don't know why.
OTS.
Yeah. He's excited today. He's got a lot to say. So this will be good.
Well, I'm going to read a little bit of this. This was sent to me by one of the CE members. Questions about timeline jumping. Hi, Lisa. I've compiled these questions from my own experiences and asking others what questions they have about their experiences. I have been compiling these questions before and after the release of the CE videos about time dimensions and timelines and time travel. From my interpretation of timeline jumping and those of others I spoke with, I think these questions are about timeline jumping that involves bigger jumps than from one spaghetti stick in the box, which we talked about, to the next adjacent one. And that's the analogy you used, Erik. I think it was Raylene who had sessions with.
Spaghetti stick in the box. I like it. Yeah.
I was, as was described in these videos. From my discussion, I'm pretty sure there's not a consistent or universal understanding of what timeline jumping really is. I hope these questions are clear and make sense. I realize that you have now made these other videos on related topics, so you may not wish to discuss these. Of course I do. I do get the sense, though, that I'm not alone in the traumatic confusion that comes from having an experience categorized as timeline jumping. Thank you, Elisa. She didn't give her name, but
okay. Well, this is great that she spent all the time doing this. Awesome. Okay. Really good.
I mean, she spent a lot of time compiling these questions. I'm very grateful. So, Erik, what is timeline jumping? Is quantum jumping the same thing, different label, or are they different?
He's saying it's the same thing that we can think of. So he used the spaghetti analogy previously, but you can also think of a timeline as a cord of light. Showing me like a cord of light, and it's reaching out right now from the present to the past and to the future, right? So, but we're only located right now. We're located as, like, say we're anchored or on this cord of light. All the and what we experience on this cord of light, or this bandwidth, another way to say it, is based on what we're thinking, kind of like the types of thoughts we think. And most people stay on their same timeline because it's like the timeline they grew up in. But we now have the opportunity to shift timelines. And so what he's talking about, jumping or the quantum timeline shift, it's the same thing. It's the concept that we ourselves work on changing our frequency, changing our vibration, changing our thoughts, and we can begin to, or jump rather, to another timeline, higher timeline, if you want to call it.
Cool. So is the quantum one, it's just, maybe that just says something about the mathematics of it. Like, this timeline has a higher quantum probability of jumping to.
Exactly. He's talking about probabilities with the word quantum.
Okay.
So the quantum, hold on a second. We are always navigating different timelines, but we're sort of like maybe staying on this, again, the light cord right here, the cord of light, or the line, or the whatever you want to call it. And through we're sort of navigating between a few different possibilities. The quantum shift is about when you shift your entire frequency, your entire vibration, and you'll find yourself all together on a new timeline.
Oh.
The old timeline looks like it has to dematerialize.
Yeah.
And so if you are currently in an experience of your life where a lot of things are falling away all at once.
Oh.
So it may feel like I don't have like, what's the word? Sure. Like you're not standing, you might feel like you're wobbling, like you're not standing on solid ground. Sometimes that's the experience of your timeline jumping. So here's an example. He wants me to give you examples. So this is not so confusing, people. Okay. Say you've been like, you had an awakening, you started, doing your work, you started doing all this healing on yourself, noticing your patterns, healing your inner child, XYZ. You're doing all this work on yourself. And you're really wanting certain things to happen in your life. And say you want a new relationship, or you want a new job, or you want whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is so much, but you want these things. What will begin to happen before those new things show up is the old that we have created from this older timeline based on a different frequency, based on a different reality, has to dematerialize. So it has to fall away. Yeah. So there may feel like a moment before you shift completely into the new timeline where you're a little bit unsure of the direction you're going. Like the new has not shown up yet. Does that make sense? Yeah. So there's a little bit of like, he's calling it lag time. Okay. And so and we are creating through our choices in each moment, we're creating our reality of where we want to go and live. Yeah. But it's not necessarily a bad thing if you find that all of a sudden your life begins to really change when you do all this healing work on yourself. Because some people might be like, what the heck is happening? Yeah. My boyfriend broke up with me, and then all of a sudden I got noticed at my job. And now I have to move. And you think in your head, well, these are all signs that something bad is happening. But in fact, you're shifting. It's making way for something new and probably better. Yeah, I think that is my theory about when, all of a sudden the dishwasher breaks and the garbage disposal and all at once. Yeah. I think that's dematerializing appliances. Or there you go. That's where the other sock appears from the dryer. I don't know. I have about 6 of them right now without matches. I'm pretty sure my daughter has it. Yeah, no, it didn't make the jump. It didn't make the jump. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Would timeline jumping be where you actually insert yourself into a different timeline? Like, is there such a thing as timeline viewing where you just view or have a vision of the timeline? Yes, absolutely. He's talking about it. You will get that, like, for some people, it's like glimpses or visions, or you just have a sense for a moment. It's like a little bit like he's calling it like a bleed through. Some people might have a feeling of, oh, there's some new reality or something shifting for me. It might just be a feeling that you get. You can also learn to view the timeline you're on, which is interesting. Ooh. You can kind of like learn to scan ahead and see the timeline you are on. Another way to say that is you could talk to the version of a future self on this timeline. Okay. Because we exist everywhere and all past and future. And we can also begin to access or view this other timeline, meaning we can learn how to view it. We can learn how to see it. Look before you jump. Right. And we can think it's an opportunity when we get these glimpses or visions. They're like possibilities. And it's important that we're making choices in alignment of what we are feeling as a soul in order to access those possibilities. So how do you learn how to do that? Well, let's ask him. You could like regression or hypnosis, or get really quiet You don't necessarily have to hypnotize yourself. He's going like this. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah. But you can just get really quiet and imagine that your future self is sitting in front of you or having a conversation with you. He's even showing me the idea of sitting with your future self at a table. It can be very simple. This doesn't have to look like anything too complicated. And you can begin to ask your future self questions. You can ask questions about the direction your life is taking.
Yeah.
Or should I go this way or that way? Things like that. You can actually ask a version of yourself those questions. So
we just have to listen, right?
To learn to listen.
Trust.
Yeah, get by.
That's the hard part. What's the difference between timeline jumping, time travel, and astral travel?
Very different things. Okay.
Okay.
Time line jumping. Okay, that's the first one. That's when a person, collectives also have timelines, but he's not going to go into that so much today. Countries, it looks like, have timelines. Like, for example, people in the United States are not wanting necessarily wanting it consciously, but are working, and they're likely going to experience a set of events, right? The thing is, we have also our personal timeline that we're on, and we can choose. We can be creating our life, creating our personal timeline. It's not to say that the collective timeline won't affect us, but it is to say that depending on your frequency and your vibration and what you're choosing to experience, some of what happens in the external world may not affect you as much. So that's one thing. So it's based on our timeline is based on our frequency, our thoughts, our personal vibration of what we're creating. Okay.
I'm wondering, but before you go on to the next one, well, you can finish that, of course, but if you have any more about timeline jumping, but what about the Mandela effect? I'm wondering if that is like timeline jumping by the collective back and forth, like it's Bernstein's Bears. It's like Mandela was, I can't remember that whole thing. So
it looks like, yeah. Sure. The Mandela effect, let's ask him. It looks like there'll be, yes, that's exactly what's happening. So we'll be like, make collectively a different choice. Or, and most of this is subconscious. We're not consciously making these choices, but we'll make a different choice to experience something, and we'll see it, what appears to be something a little like different, because it's on a different timeline, and that's the timeline we're choosing to experience as a collective.
Okay.
So that's kind of the example of that. Now, astral travel is different in that it is the soul moving into the astral realm and experiencing travel in the astral realm. That's within so that's different than the personal timeline that you're creating according to your thoughts and reality. Okay. And what was the third one? I'm sorry.
Well, what is the astral realm, just in case people don't know what that is?
It's a realm. So it's sorry, get the right words. There's lots of availability to, first of all, he doesn't necessarily recommend hanging out in the astral realm. So
it can be dangerous.
Yeah, you have to be very careful and mindful and aware of what you're doing. Okay, that it's like he doesn't want everybody just to all of a sudden that listens to this be like, let's go astral traveling. Now, this is a realm in which lots of beings exist. Some are discarnate beings. We can find lots of, it's a realm that exists as part of the earth, but we don't necessarily have access to it.
So it's not, heaven's not part of that, is it?
No.
Okay.
But I keep getting this warning sign or flashing warning sign to be careful.
Yeah.
Like if you want to learn to astral travel, learn it from somebody that is knowledgeable and can teach you, and learn how to do it safely. Because sometimes if you don't get back in your body properly, or you can bring things back with you that are not necessarily positive. It's not to scare people. Exactly. It's not just necessarily to scare people, but it's just to be aware that it's important to be careful if you're doing that.
Okay. The other one was time travel.
Time travel. It's the idea that as a soul, we are located in a certain place or point in time, but our consciousness can, if we decide, we should have a guide if we learn how to time travel to go with, can learn to access other times, other places, and other timelines. So it's really like we can, with our consciousness, learn to, for example, go in, the medieval times, or we can learn to go in, we can access the future. So that is example of time
consciousness, not
correct. Not the body, but our consciousness.
Can meet ourselves in the Middle Ages. That'd be cool.
Well, I actually do a lot of this, and this is interesting. So, sometimes when people come in, and this is me talking, sometimes when people come in a session, they'll have something that they just can't figure out.
Yeah.
Or, it's like this problem that's been plaguing them their whole life, blah, blah, blah. And it will pop in that this is a past life, and we'll get the lifetime, and then we'll go to that. So this is an example of time travel. We will go to that timeline, to that lifetime, and assist your past life self in releasing that stuck energy from whatever happened. And when we clear that stuck energy, then, the wound in the now is also healed. So,
and you can actually the future too.
Can you? I don't do that as much, but yes, you can.
Okay.
I mean, that's what Eric's saying. Yeah. I mean, it's really pretty fascinating. And in my experience in working with, I don't know, thousands of people at this point, is that most everybody can do this.
That's
what's interesting. Yeah. Really.
Okay, does timeline jumping involve experiencing other dimensions or frequencies? I want to preface that by saying, are dimensions defined individually by frequency, by their own frequency?
He would categorize dimensions as something altogether different. Okay, so what we can talk about as, the first part of the question was about,
does timeline jumping involve experiencing other dimensions or frequencies?
Okay, yes, it involves experiencing other frequencies.
Okay.
Because in order to jump quantumly to a higher timeline, the person who's asking the question will change their frequency. That's how we get to another timeline. It's through our personal change in our own frequency.
Do you have to match the frequency of the other timeline?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You will be matching the frequency of your next desired timeline. Okay. How do you change your frequency? Well, there's lots of ways, but it's through letting go and healing yourself and releasing the trauma held in your body, old belief systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you'll be switching. Dimensions you can think of as existing simultaneously. We exist in all dimensions right now. Yeah. So you and I are having a conversation in Like we could even say we're having a conversation in the 5th dimension right now. Okay. And why are we able to do this? Because we can access the 5th dimension. We begin to be able to access the higher dimensions or the 5th dimension when we come into a place of heart-based love frequency, right? Right. So on Earth, we're watching this play out. And I'm not saying I'm always high vibe. I mean, I have moments, whatever. We are. But we're watching this play on Earth. You will walk, maybe through a grocery store, and not in a way that I mean to be judgmental right now or sound judgmental, but we'll notice that there appears to be like people in different realities, right? And it's more and more we're going to notice this. It's like that doesn't even feel like my reality right now.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's this opportunity, and we've got a choice. There's this opportunity to work on ourselves, to heal ourselves, to shift through timeline, but ultimately we will shift to the higher dimension.
So this ascension, basically.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. When or why does it happen? Timeline jumping.
It happens. He says, you decide. That's the answer to this question. You decide.
Okay.
So that's it. It happens when we are deciding that you can actually decide to live on your highest timeline in this lifetime.
Okay.
You can make that decision. We have a lot of power. But what happens is most people, and this is not a put down, but this is just what often happens, grow up. Say we grow up on a timeline where the predominant frequencies or vibration are like lack, fear, whatever, those things. And so we're creating our timeline based on how we grew up.
Yeah.
Okay. At a certain point, say that person wakes up and decides they want to do healing work on themselves. They're releasing their past. They get some energy work, from you, Lisa, or whatever. They just do all these things. And, and also like they can do this all on their own. They're healing. You will find yourself on a new timeline that's based on who you are, who you really are.
Wow.
Right? Authentically.
Yeah.
So that's the opportunity. So that's what he says. You decide. Yeah.
Outside of the thoughts that you've been given, these false perceptions of yourself from mother, father, peers, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we pick up all these things and they turn into beliefs, and beliefs turn into programs. And our programs are like instructions, right? We're kind of giving instructions to the field of information.
Yeah.
And we have to change the instructions.
Yeah.
So
what happens? Like you jump to your higher, but your husband, who was on the low frequency, I mean, what does that all look like? The other people in your lives?
Well, it depends.
Like a grocery store thing? If they don't go with you?
It depends. Sometimes, and I'm not, no put down, but sometimes those relationships don't make it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it's the opportunity for the person to begin, and there's an invitation for the person that has not shifted to begin doing their work.
Yeah.
Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We all have free will. We all have a choice, right? Becomes challenging. It doesn't mean you can't stay in a relationship, but it does become challenging sometimes when you are really like almost like this new person. But what I mean is who you really are, and people around you still think of you as the older version of yourself.
Yeah, that's tough.
Right. So that's why a lot of things shift, and they're not always easy.
Yeah, that's where the whole "we grew apart" thing comes, I guess, in part.
That's one of absolutely. Relationships end.
Yeah.
But just as relationships end, on the next timeline, a relationship that is more aligned to your new belief system will show up.
Okay.
If you want it. So,
now they say, why does it happen? Why does timeline jumping happen?
because the nature of energy is change.
Yeah.
Right. And nothing in any moment in this conversation is static. That's what he's reminding us. And there's always change, right? There's always change. And, we're constantly emitting, a frequency. We're constantly thinking types of thoughts. So there's not a possibility that we wouldn't be fluctuating, right? Like even within this very moment,
creating the timeline.
Right. Exactly. So that's why there's no such thing as static.
Who decides that one is going to jump timelines? You, your higher self, guardian angels, spirit guides, archangels. I understand there's a belief that sometimes it happens when an angel or archangel intervenes to save your life if it wasn't your time to go.
Well, he's saying let's take it back to point one or whatever point. You decide.
Yeah.
So we have so much help. We have so much assistance. We can ask guardian angels, our guides, our spirit team. We have so much available help, and they will help us, but they will not do it for us. Okay. We have to be empowered in our own decision that we want to do this.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that means to do the work, to
exactly
evolve and ascend, etc.
Yeah.
Does it happen that when they save your life because it's not your time, that sometimes that makes you, your higher self, or whatever, decide to jump timelines?
It could be that way. That could be a possibility for that. But also, sometimes he's showing me that's more related to like we have a possible exit point, and we as a soul decide not to exit, right? But in part of that question, sometimes those experiences really wake people up and they cause them to shift rapidly because they're like, oh my gosh, I almost exited. Yeah. I know who I am now, or I think of my life. Exactly. And so you might, as a result of that experience, start to shift your timeline. You might shift into a new timeline. So it's possible.
Yeah. Go through sometimes that starts an entire spiritual journey.
Exactly.
Okay, surely the physical self does not always consciously decide. For example, if you've never heard or thought about these concepts, you're not going to say, I think I'll change timelines today. If you don't know about it, can it still happen to you?
I mean, we're doing it all the time, whether we know it or not.
Okay.
That's what Erik responds.
All right.
Yeah.
Does timeline jumping contribute to soul fragmentation?
No.
Okay, good. What causes
he has a caveat to that. Okay. If you experience something very difficult or traumatic, it is possible that we leave pieces of our soul in that experience.
Wow.
And so sometimes the healing is taking those pieces back, retrieving them.
Yeah, like as part of the main service, we get the Elohim to retrieve and reattach lost soul fragments. And I remember Kim Voigt was doing something with my energy, and they had to sew back on my foot. And it's so weird because that is the foot that I shattered my metatarsal in the past. All sorts of things have happened to my right foot. A bunion that had to be operated, not on the other one, but this one. So does that?
There was a lifetime. Yeah, there was a lifetime for you where there was a ball and chain attached to that ankle, and you're like a prisoner of some kind. I can see you're like trying to run away from something.
And now I am the ball and chain.
No, you're not.
No, no.
Anyway, so that's
okay. So soul fragmentation
possibly
from trauma, some traumatic event. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does timeline jumping involve tapping into different versions of who you are? Example, different versions from different lifetimes. this might be like what is discussed on the 2020 CE video about how individuals could have multiple personality disorder, DID, that includes personalities from another lifetime, channel different versions of themselves from different lifetimes, etc. So I'm when they're long like this, I can't.
I don't really understand the question.
Okay,
Sorry.
so does it involve tapping into different versions of yourself? This timeline jumping, like
Yes,
different
yes,
versions
it
of
does.
different. Oh, okay.
Well, he's not talking so much about past lives here, but we certainly can access past lives. We certainly can. We can learn to do that. That's one of the gifts of, and most people, and in my experience, these healings that I do in this type of work, it's like 95% of people can do this. So, I mean, really,
Cool.
pretty.
So, multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder, does that have anything to do with versions of yourself accidentally being on the same timeline?
Multiple personality disorder. Not necessarily, and it depends. So sometimes what we would consider multiple personalities are like discarnate souls that are attached to that person.
Yeah,
hitching a ride. Exactly.
right.
You're saying that's more common than like. However, there are examples of people with that disorder who are actually kind of like almost like channeling alternative versions of themselves.
Oh,
so it is possible.
What about people who feel dissociated, like dissociative DID? Is that like, I don't feel like I belong in this timeline? I feel dissociated from reality. Could that be one instance of that happening?
That's possible. More often though, dissociative is related to trauma.
Trauma, and you're not totally grounded in your body, probably.
Correct. Like so if you've had something, and trauma is complex and different for people, right? What somebody would experience as trauma may not be traumatic for another person. Okay. And so we're not talking, it's not equal for everyone.
Yeah, I've heard that somebody could have a tonsillectomy and that is trauma for them.
Correct.
And
yeah. But
PTSD from, yeah. Probably because
if you had something happen and you had to kind of escape, meaning you had to leave your body to survive it.
Yeah.
That happens, right? We leave our body, we kind of go into, there's different modes we go into. We don't need to go into that, but that can sometimes turn into like, that is a pattern of survival, meaning I check out or I leave my body when I'm activated. So that is often what dissociative is, but not every time.
Yeah.
That's not, there's examples of that not being the case.
Somebody could be triggered by their tonsillectomy. Maybe they were in the guillotine or they got their throat slashed or whatever. So tonsillectomy, a big deal, but it could be a bleed through from a horrifying experience from another life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there are examples of, and especially sometimes you will find something in life, and because you have that soul wound, it will like trigger you in a different way, either from this lifetime or a past lifetime.
Oh. What are some side effects of timeline jumping? Example, can it cause confusion, identity crisis, etc.? And we'll start with that.
He was going to say happiness, joy, peace, abundance. Those are the side effects.
You usually ascend to a higher frequency timeline. Is that what you're saying?
You can descend to a lower timeline.
Why would you want to do that?
Well, you are choosing in every moment, right? But most people on this call today are wanting to know how to better themselves.
Yeah.
Right? They're wanting to know how to heal, or they probably wouldn't be this far in listening to all this. Right?
Right.
You can only access a higher timeline through right now. Okay? It's important to understand. We're not accessing it somewhere down the line. It's through right now.
Okay.
But through our own work on ourselves, through shifting our vibration, we can access more of what we came here to experience, more of what we want, a higher timeline. And doing our soul work, what we came here to do.
Yeah. So, yeah, just figure out your soul purpose and work on it, man. All right. So, how can we avoid descending, and what would cause us to descend to a lower frequency timeline?
Well, if you get
Addiction might be
caught,
one, or
he said he's talking about, it's almost like getting caught in patterns of, like, say we just have anger about a situation or a person. Now, it is healthy to have anger. It's not a problem. We all have these emotions. It's healthy to feel, process, and release, right? To move through it, to work with it. It's not to resist it. It's to feel it.
and not to self-medicate it away.
And that's what 95% he would say of people are doing. You know, they have a drink or they shop or whatever the thing is that you do. Not you necessarily. I don't mean you, Elisa. I mean all of us, right? And we all have
all my secrets, okay.
But we can make a different choice and work with our emotions differently, right? That's not what he's talking about so much. It's like but sometimes people get caught. Say you have anger about something and you're letting it stew for years, and it turns into like bitterness, is what he's calling it. And that bitterness you can move to a different timeline. You can be on this bitterness, anger, everything in your world is a result of this bitterness. So it's very important, like, say, you know, a relationship ends. It's not necessarily, we talk about forgiveness as for the other person, even, it's for you. So you can do your healing work and move to whatever else is next for you, you know. That's positive.
Do you have any advice for how to work through a timeline jumping crisis? I suppose they're not talking about going up, it's about going down, and that's working on yourself, you know. Shadow work.
Do the healing you need to do. Look at the hard things, he's saying.
Okay.
Look at the hard things. It's not easy, you know.
And I found that my healing is best when I don't focus on what the other person did wrong to me, because I can't do anything about that. Even the small thing that I did, it takes two to tango. So I really try to work on, all right, Elisa, come on. What did you say or do that you shouldn't have? So.
Yeah, it's noticing your own, well, he calls it bullshit, but it's noticing, I normally won't say the words, some of those words that he says, but it's noticing your own patterns, right? It's like, oh, interesting. Okay. And you know, we all have them.
And acknowledging it and letting go. And then you get the freedom after that release by calling yourself on your own bullshit. It's very freeing.
Very.
Okay.
Not easy, but freeing.
No, it's easier than people think, especially when you get older than me, you know, I mean, seriously.
It doesn't also, what's important about this conversation is that our healing is not dependent on another person. And that's very free. We don't have to have, you know, say you have, you know, pain about your relationship with your father. This is for someone on this call. And you are really struggling with that, and you really want your dad to see your point of view and understand how he hurt you, and you just can't get him to see it. Well, this is about you taking your power back and realizing that you can heal that relationship, even if that person does not participate in changing.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And that's powerful.
Very.
Yeah.
I got two more questions. How do you know when you have jump timelines? Could the symptom of timeline jumping be confused with something else, or if so, what?
Usually he says, oh, you'll know. You'll have a sense of a lot has changed rapidly around me very quickly. And that's how you know you are on a whole new timeline. So I'll give you an example because he wants me to. A couple of years ago, I had to throw away almost all my stuff in my apartment because I had toxic mold everywhere. And at the time I was like, this is horrible. This is an awful experience. I can't believe this is happening. But it was like that needed to happen for a lot of new parts of my life to start to show up.
Yeah.
At the time, it felt awful. It was not fun. But what showed up after that, I was like, oh, I'm on a new timeline,
Cool.
Yeah.
It reminds me of something I heard today. This guy was a sailor and he's shipwrecked and it's in dark in the middle of nowhere, nobody around. And he said, God, please save me, save me. And all of a sudden the ship caught on fire. And then he had to jump and hold on to a piece of the hull. And then this giant ship comes and like they save him and said, look, boy, if we hadn't seen that fire, we would never have found you.
Right, exactly. So sometimes it looks like this really uncomfortable change, and the change can be painful.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily easy. It could be like, oh, I was in a relationship with this person for 4 years and look, now I can't be anymore. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's just not easy stuff, but you will find yourself in a new vibrational frequency, in new experiences.
Erik, have you ever timeline jumped when you were alive?
Oh yeah, all the time, Mom.
Really? Down or up or both?
He said mostly down, but both. Yeah.
What about me?
But he's like, you're going up.
Well, what seemed like, I guess after your death, maybe I went down, but then back up. I don't know.
No, he doesn't actually see it that way. You went into grief.
Yeah.
Grief does not mean, and this is interesting because it's come up in one of my sessions today with him. Grief does not mean that you're doing something wrong.
Oh yeah.
We need, so no, but you ultimately, even though it's still painful, you took that experience and look at what you've made, look at what you've done. Well, yeah, but it was your intention that created that.
That's true. All right, last one. How is time jumping different from multiverse theory? Is like the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once? This question is from another, and I must admit I know nothing about the references this question makes, but I'm hoping Erik will know. So, is timeline jumping related to the multiverse theory?
It is. We do exist everywhere all at once.
That's true.
Because we are part of the all. We are the totality of all. But as we would be crazy if we didn't have our ability to locate ourselves within this experience right now.
Right.
And within this experience right now, we find but our consciousness can travel to other times, to other experiences, basically. So,
all right, last question.
Fascinating stuff, isn't it?
It is really awesome.
Yeah.
Do we timeline jump in our dreams, or is that just something different? Like we're just
you can, yeah, you can. You can learn. He's saying, I need to learn this from him. I don't know how to do this. You can learn to experience higher timelines in your dreams.
Wow.
And in your dreams, you can actually sync more with that reality, and it will like bleed through into your everyday life.
Cool. Erik, in a dream, do that. Take me with you and take me timeline jumping.
You'll be flying with him, he says.
No.
So that is particular for people who like to do dream work. Like dream, if there are people on this call that they really resonate with the idea of dream work, and you can learn to do that. So awesome. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Courtney, and
thank you.
Love you both. And please, guys, we're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. Please hit the subscribe button.
Are you close? You're close, right?
I can't remember. Paula just told me. So she said, come on, get them to subscribe.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
I don't know why that's so important to get to 100,000, but I think it's because then YouTube has these bots that, share your shit more.
Oh,
I don't know though. I do not know. All right, thank
it'll
you.
be okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.